News Central now. This hour begins with developments from President Bola Tinubu's first presidential media chat last night, where he reiterated his commitment to the tax reform bills, saying there would be no reversal. The reforms have sparked controversy, particularly from northern leaders who argue that the measures are designed to impoverish the region. Addressing these concerns during a presidential media chat in Lagos State, the president emphasized that the reforms are here to stay. He said the reforms are pro-poor and aim to expand the tax net, ensuring broader participation in revenue generation. The president also dismissed any possibility of reversing the removal of fuel subsidies or reducing the size of his cabinet. He also attributed the recent stampedes that have claimed nearly 70 lives during the festive season to poor crowd management by event organizers.
Are you looking at it from the goodwill gesture of the people trying to give out whatever they have possession? And it is very sad that people are not well organized. We just have to be more disciplined in our society. Condolences to those who lost a family member. But it is good to give. I have been given out foodstuffs, commodities, and clothing envelopes and modular for the last 25 years.
"2024 could be described as a momentous one, and as the year draws to a close, Nigeria stands at a critical juncture, reflecting on progress made and challenges that stare the country in the face. News Central will be bringing you a series of reports on Nigeria's key sectors, from the economy to judiciary, healthcare, education and energy, among others, offering in-depth insights and analysis of the major trends, achievements and obstacles that have defined the year. This morning, we begin with the economy, which amid global headwinds continues to demonstrate resilience and at the same time complexities that Nigerians hope will be resolved in 2025 and beyond. News Central's business team, led by Nasir Agbalaya, compiled this report, taking a look at the realities in terms of economic, fiscal policies and access to capital in 2024.
Africa's most populous nation has been grappling with economic challenges of late. Factors like rising inflation, currency devaluation, and security challenges continue to hinder the economy.
Raise the MPR by 25 basis points to 27.50% from 27.25%.
Our issue is not just about just trying to arrest inflation by hiking MPR, because beyond corruption, we also have a lot of mismanagement in the system. One thing is to be saving money, another thing is, on the other hand, wasting money in the name of mismanagement.
In terms of access to capital, the Central Bank of Nigeria has taken steps to improve liquidity in the financial system. The bank has kept the cash reserve ratio unchanged after its last MPC meeting of 2024 and the 9th for this year.
Primarily, it was largely driven by how much stability we are able to maintain in the exchange rate. That is what will be the key driver of inflationary pressure. That's what will attract foreign direct investment. That's what will attract foreign portfolio investment. That's what will create stability in the economy.
President Tinubu had promised 200 billion naira to support SMEs, which we have not been able to independently verify if disbursement has started. However, despite these efforts, access to capital remains a challenge for many businesses, particularly the small and medium-sized enterprises. The high interest rates and stringent collateral requirements from commercial banks have made it difficult for many businesses to access credit.
Very heavily impacted, very negatively impacted. this has shrink our businesses over time. We've not been able to do business as usual again because for one thing, lending has become very difficult. It's now very, very, very expensive to get funding from the banks, and even the banks are now advanced to giving out money to the real sector.
Although many pledges have been made to Nigeria, sustainable growth is expected from the energy sector.
I think the thing to realize is that these things take time. So what we've seen is some of the IOCs have exited or are exiting, not exiting totally, but are exiting some of the assets they've held fully or partially, and they're handing over the operatorship of those assets to Nigerians. The expectation is that Nigerians will then work those assets and then get them, for the ones that are not producing optimally, get them producing and then potentially, attract new investments to then increase production. But it takes time.
The Nigerian Senate recently passed the tax reform bills for the second reading. It was forwarded to the lawmakers by President Bola Tinubu in October 2024. The passage followed a debate among lawmakers. This happened despite opposition from governors, lawmakers and traditional rulers from Nigeria's northern region.
I think it's a very, very good economic move. It streamlines tax collections. It allows folks to focus on the operational side, and it will allow this revenue service focus on the fiscal side. President, that we should increase derivation. The way it works in Nigeria is that when we get 100 naira, we share out 40 naira based on the principle of equality. Then 30 naira goes in principle of population. Derivation is just 10% or 10 naira. What Mr. President is now saying is that it's going to increase the share from the federal to the state. So the state will get more money. But in return, he wants to increase the proportion of derivation from the current 10 to, I'm hearing him saying, about 60%. So the state gets more money, but derivation percentage rises in the formula to calculate and share out the federal allocations, what we call FAC. So I think the governors or the North, in quotes, is basically worried that their current revenues is going to go down because it's going to be based on derivation and not on land mass and equality. I think
Nigeria's economy has been on a recovery path, recording a year-to-year gross domestic product growth rate of 3.46% in Q3 2024, according to the National Bureau of Statistics. This represents an improvement from 2.54% in the same period last year, and a slight increase from 3.19% in the previous quarter. But the big question remains: what is driving this growth, and what does it mean for access to capital and economic stability?
The good news is that the Bureau of Statistics is saying this is the growth of the economy in the third quarter. IMF is saying almost the same thing. So it's somehow good for us. I mean, it's either we exceed it based on our own MBS data, or we keep it at that based on the World Bank IMF data.
In conclusion, while Nigeria's economic growth has shown some positive signs in 2024, the country still faces significant challenges, including high inflation and limited access to capital. The government must continue to work to address these challenges and create a more favorable business environment.
Very insightful package there. Well, to discuss further, we also have here with us this morning on News Now, Mr. Mukhtar Mohammed, who joins me this morning. I'm sure you followed through that package and your points were equally highlighted, but how will you rate the current administration's economic policies and its impact on Nigeria's GDP growth rate in the past year?
Thank you again. Compliment of the season. I think the policies have been, you could say, the good, the bad, the ugly, depending on which sector of the economy you are looking. If you are in a sector that's largely driven by importation, you see it has been an ugly year. If you are in a sector that is, you have to look for funding you will see it has been a very bad year. And if you're in a sector that it has to be in the financial sector or the oil and gas sector, you will see it has been a good year. So depending on that, and for the GDP, I think the GDP has improved, output has improved, especially in the oil and gas sector. We have seen that improvement in oil production. We've seen the non-oil sector also come in stream. We've seen, despite the challenges, the manufacturing sector seems to be doing well based on the data we are getting. So you could say in the area of the GDP, yes, we've seen improvement compared to where they were last year. Then again, like I said, it depends on which side of the device you are. It has been the good, the bad, the ugly.
All right. Let's talk about the Central Bank of Nigeria. It's been trying a number of policies actually aiming to stabilize the economy. We've seen a review of the NPR, you name it, here and there. Many times the CBN governor himself has had to have a few meetings to ensure that this happens. How effective do you think this has been?
Well, I think the CBN has been doing trial and error all through the years. I mean, they come up with this policy today, come up with this policy tomorrow. They've not been able to create that stability, and I think that's a major problem. But again, they have moved from a high level of instability to a corridor of stability, and that corridor is between 1,650, 1,500, and sometimes. So definitely, that means they are beginning to see a corridor in terms of stability corridor. But in terms of maintaining stability by some of this policy, they've not been able to achieve it because the key issue in the Nigeria FX challenges has to do with the retail sector. And that retail sector, they've not been able to address liquidity to that space. Just of recent, they said that the really change can access the official market to get FX. But that again, that's a short-term measure from 19 to January 30th. So they've not been able to get a solution, a long-term solution. They are looking at recapitalization. But before the recapitalization, what are you going to do to boost liquidity in their retail sector? The guy that wants need 500,000, I mean, need $500 per $1,000. The person that wants to pay a visa fee and they are saying that you need to come up with $200 to pay a visa fee, even if that's not a legal tender. Have you been able to address this issue? Those are the pressure that we're seeing in the retail sector. So until that is addressed in terms of injection of liquidity and a very good monetary policy to that space, you continue to have that challenges. Yes, they've come up with more transparent way, and now they will remember will kick up the digital platform whereby banks can now bid for PTAs and BT for their customers through the digital platform, and it hits your account. Yes, transparency and integrity is what we want in the market. Is coming in gradually, but they need to boost liquidity because the challenge of the naira is not just in the fact that you have the policy, is if you attract more liquidity to that space, especially the retail sector.
But what suggestions can you recommend to improve the current fiscal policies that we see today?
I think number one, we should stop doing the copy and paste method. You know, our economy is different. We have a unique economy. If you say you want to hike interest rate, you are killing little businesses because cost of funding goes up. If you say you want to reduce liquidity in the system, you are killing the most productive sector of the Nigerian economy, the smaller business, especially in the rural area. So you are driving a lot of people into poverty. And so we need to look for an ongoing solution to our problem. And most of our problem can be addressed when we look at the precarity. I'll give you an example like inflation. How do you address inflation? You just address inflation in Nigeria by stabilizing the exchange rate and reducing high costs of borrowing, and then inflation will naturally come down. So, but if you decide to say, okay, you want to reduce liquidity in the system, then you'll be fueling more inflation. So the challenge is how much of homegrown policy have we been able to embark upon to grow our economy? For me, I would recommend whereby we look at the precarity of our economy and begin to address it. We mustn't use the normal policy of, oh, we want to fight inflation, you reduce liquidity, you hike interest rate, you make sure that you are killing one sector of the economy. So we need to look at how do we do that. I think mostly we have to look for an homegrown solution, and some of those homegrown solutions will come when we begin to have that contact with our market women, contact with those that are SME business, saying how can you help their businesses grow? How can you come up with fiscal policies that will help those businesses grow? How can you come up with monetary policy to complement what the fiscal policy are saying? That's the only way we can grow. But if we continue at this rate that we are going, it will be very difficult.
All right, Mr. Mukhtar, I'm sure you followed the presidential media chat, the first after a long time the Nigerians have been calling for it. What stood out for you in some of the president's statement regarding the policies and the current economy that we find ourselves in today?
I think what stood out for me is the boldness that he believes in his policy, and he knows. We seem to think maybe he doesn't know what's happening. He seems to know everything that has happened. That was stood out for me. He seems to believe in his policy. He seems to believe that the policy is hitting the right note, even if we have our doubt about it. He feels that the data are helping him, even if those data, I think more or less is the belief and the confidence and the way he didn't hold back in talking about some policies that are very controversial. He believed in those policies, and he thinks those policies could turn around the economy. For me, that was the takeaway point. Outside of that, I think it's still more or less like a lot of promises, a lot of impatient. And then sometimes I don't know who the advisors of the president, because sometimes, or is it the president is saying, he said just 18 months. 18 months is not just in an administration. So he needs to know that you get more confident. Governance is all about love and truth. And then when you have Lord, it's a trusting. It's all about the people trust you. Are you doing policy that they love? And then integrity is paramount. And they need to begin to do that. One area that I saw that the president said things, and it's very disheartening. When the people say, look, the cost of governance is high, your cabinet is very large, the largest in the history of this country. And he said, look, I will not reduce my cabinet. I will continue to do what I don't think that was right, because again, you are telling the people to tie their belt, and then you are loosening your own belt. And this appointment comes with a lot of largesse. It's not that it's just come an appointment. You see the convoys that follow most of these people. You see that special advisors already in the newspapers, senior special advisors only on cars, about 2 billion has gone on cars alone. So I think you should look at that and be able to tell Nigeria, because you came in, you say you were going to reduce the cost of governance, and already governance has gone up.
Well said. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us here on News Now.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, away from that now, the tragic loss of lives due to stampedes during the distribution of relief materials in Ibadan, Abuja and Okija has raised serious concerns about safety protocols in philanthropic efforts. With the festive season upon us, experts are calling for better organized and secure methods of sharing relief items. News Central's Bernard Akede spoke to the CEO of a prominent Lagos-based food bank and the police public relations officer on how to prevent future tragedies. Take a look.
The festive season often brings a surge in goodwill, with many organizations distributing food and relief materials to the less privileged. However, recent tragic incidents in Ibadan, Abuja, and most recently Anambra have cast a shadow over these acts of kindness, prompting questions about safety and proper planning.
The need is so much, and we can't just say because of that we just want to go to a community and start distributing. Everybody will feel eligible to it, right? So what we do is we profile these families, give them a voucher. Once we do that, that means they've been streamlined already. The people that have the voucher have been marked from the crowd. So those ones already start telling their neighbors and their colleagues that we have a card. And those ones just know that if you don't have a card, it means that you don't necessarily have to come to the venue.
Attending to crowds of large numbers can certainly be a Herculean task, and as such, certain infrastructure in terms of volunteers, adequate security, proper identification, and planning in general cannot be overlooked.
For security, the truth is, people think that having police, personnel, all those things in place is what will prevent stampede. I will tell you from my experience, it doesn't. Proper crowd management happens when there are people, other civilians on ground, barricading holding and doing hand chains, and then ensuring that the people, if it's 10-10, be bringing them in. Once you've done your barricading with the human chain, there's some other set of volunteers start bringing them in 2020s, in 10-10, and when beneficiaries themselves understand that it's moving, they become calm. Once they see a little bit of orderliness, but once there is any sense of this, so it's just to understand that there is a place for volunteers in crowd management, and there's a place for security. So the security come in where there could be some youths in the community that probably might just want to disrupt what is happening there.
In response to the recent tragedies, the Nigerian police has stepped in, urging all parties involved to prioritize safety and accountability. The police has also said it will ensure those whose carelessness led to these tragedies will be brought to book.
In light of this development, the IGP has called on government officials, community leaders, and non-governmental organizations to work collaboratively towards establishing a comprehensive and organized framework for distributing palliatives. The IGP has ordered the commissioners of police in the affected states to carry out thorough investigations into these ugly incidences for further legal actions.
As the festive season continues, the hope is that these lessons will translate into safer and more effective outreach programs, ensuring that relief reaches those in need without further loss of life. In Lagos for News Central, I'm Bernard Akede.
Thank you, Bernard Akede there. Let's go for a quick break. When we return, Plateau State House of Assembly passes 529.4 billion naira budget. We have details of this story and more shortly. Welcome back. The Plateau State House of Assembly has approved a 529.4 billion naira budget for the 2025 fiscal year, surpassing Governor Caleb Mutfwang's original proposal by over 500 million naira. The budget was passed during Monday's plenary session, chaired by Speaker Gabriel Dewan. Chairman of the Appropriation Committee, Adamu Aliyu, presented the report, highlighting adjustments made following deliberations. Mutfwang had initially proposed 471.134 billion naira, with 201.5 billion naira allocated for recurrent expenditure and 269.6 billion naira for capital projects. After further scrutiny, the Assembly increased the total to 529.4 billion naira. This approval represents a crucial step towards advancing Plateau State's development objectives for the coming year. Let's move now to security matters. The federal government has announced that Nigeria is now free of the Lakurawa terrorist group, following a decisive military campaign that forced the group back into Mali. The declaration was made by the Minister of State for Defense, Bello Matawalle, during a press briefing in Gusau's Zamfara State. Speaking to journalists, Matawalle emphasized that the group, which originated in Mali, no longer poses a threat on Nigerian soil. He credited the success to the Nigerian military's robust defense, which dismantled the group's networks and denied them any foothold in Nigeria. His announcement counters recent reports by Zamfara State Commissioner Police Mohammed Shehu Daligan, who had linked the Lakurawa group to a series of explosive attacks in the region. Staying on security matters, armed bandits on Sunday night ambushed an 18-passenger vehicle traveling to Ekiti, kidnapping all passengers on board. The incident occurred on the outskirts of Emuriawo as the vehicle was returning from Onitsha. According to a source, the criminals abducted Sunday Emmanuel, the driver, along with several passengers from the Ekiti branch of the Road Transport Employers Association of Nigeria. The kidnappers are reportedly demanding a ransom of 30 million naira per person. The source, who requested anonymity, revealed that the kidnappers left some children behind on the bus. Their cries attracted the attention of passers-by in the early hours of Monday, leading to the incident being reported to the nearest police station. The source also disclosed that 2 passengers managed to escape during the night. Police later arrived at the scene and recovered the abandoned bus. Nigeria Center for Counter-Terrorism Operations says that between 2017 till date, about 742 arrested Boko Haram suspects were convicted following their trial. The director of the center, including the director of public prosecution of the national and the office of the National Security Advisor, during a briefing with newsmen in Abuja, aimed at clearing the air over several misconceptions about the nation's de-radicalization program and the prosecution of arrested Boko Haram suspects, saying that another 888 suspects were discharged and acquitted.
There has been a number of misperceptions regarding de-radicalization programs and the prosecutions of terrorism cases. And this is an opportunity to also clear the air. Those who are eligible for de-radicalization are those whom the criminal justice process has not found to have committed any offense. But in the course of our counterinsurgency operations, they have been arrested. So if there is evidence and you follow through trial and you are convicted, you go and serve your sentences.
At the first phase of the trial, a total number of 282 cases were disposed of, 50 of which were convicted, 203 discharged for want of evidence, and 28 adjourned to Abuja for continuation of trial. 2017. In 2018, a total number of 1,004 suspects or cases were disposed of, out of which...
Let's move now to health matters. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control has announced that 6 out of the nation's 36 states in the federation account for 89% of recorded cases of Lassa fever in the year 2024, over 100 fatalities. The Director General of the agency made this known in the nation's capital, Abuja, informing citizens that Lassa fever remains endemic, with over 9,000 suspected cases reported alone this year and around 1,000 confirmed. He urged citizens to maintain proper hygiene management, ensure the environment are clean with proposal waste disposal management.
Cumulatively, we have recorded about over 9,000 suspected cases and about 1,154 confirmed, with about 190 deaths. That's throughout the year. But 6 states make up 89% of the confirmed cases, namely Ondo, Edo, Bauchi, Taraba, Benue, and Mboin. 10 local government areas in the whole of the country account for almost 59% of the confirmed cases. These are in Owo, Esako West, Esan East, Karfi, Adokola, Turo. I think Ose, Akure South, Jalingo, and Ida. But more important, this is for the whole year. But more importantly, there has been an alarming increase in Lassa fever cases and deaths in the last 4 weeks, signaling the outbreak severity. First, the case fatality rate has consistently remained high, about over 13%, which is totally unacceptable to us.
Let's quickly take a look at our business news this morning, and also let you know that in the world of business, we would be looking at stories concerning, indeed, Nigeria's latest report concerning our inflation rate. But let's join the business team for the business package.
In business, beginning in Nigeria, Nigeria's rubber imports have surged by 106% over the past decade, hitting 1.3 trillion naira in 2023 from 631.1 billion naira in 2013. This was stated by the National Bureau of Statistics. Shrinking local production, aging plantations, and underinvestment have been identified as key factors. Despite an over 90% naira devaluation, experts stress the issue stems more from production gaps than forex constraints. Nigeria, once a rubber export giant, now cultivates only 200,000 hectares of its 18 million hectares of suitable land, underscoring the sector's decline amid competition from crude oil. And still in Nigeria, the country ranked 19th globally for malware attacks in November 2024, down from 14th in August, with its normalized cyber risk index improving from 61.9% to 56.9%, according to Checkpoint. However, Africa remains a prime target, with 7 nations in the top 20. Key threats like Androx Ghost exploit critical infrastructure, while mobile malware such as Joker and Anubis remain pervasive. Analysts emphasize the need for robust cybersecurity measures to counter evolving threats. Education and research were the most targeted global industries, highlighting vulnerabilities in critical sectors. Improved defenses mark progress, but risks persist amid rising malware sophistication. And still in West Africa, Ghana's inflation rate is forecast to decline further in 2025, averaging 11.9%. Deloitte reveals in its 2025 outlook. This marks progress from 2024's average of 22.85% and 2023's 40.28%. A stable cedi and easing food prices are expected to drive disinflation. However, election spending and potential tax hikes could dampen progress, with businesses likely passing higher costs to consumers. Deloitte suggests lower inflation could reduce borrowing costs, spurring private sector growth. While still above the Bank of Ghana's target range of 8% plus or minus 2%, the trend signals economic stabilization and potential for broader recovery. And finally, in Southern Africa, South Africa has retained its preferential U.S. market access under the African Growth and Opportunity Act (AGOA) for 2025, despite geopolitical tensions. The U.S. Trade Representative confirmed the decision after reviewing eligibility. South Africa's deepening ties with China, neutrality on Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and criticism of Israel had raised concerns among U.S. lawmakers. The U.S. remains South Africa's second largest trade partner, making the AGOA extension crucial for its fragile economy. With AGOA set to expire in 2025, an extension bill is under consideration. That's our offering on business news at this time. Thank you for watching. I am Perpetua Fasami Peter. The news continues shortly.
Well, thanks so much from the business desk. Earlier on, we had told you that massive protest has indeed ensued in Mozambique following the recent announcement made concerning the elections. Well, I'm being joined currently and this morning by Charles Mangwiro. Well, Charles is a journalist and is reporting live from Maputo in Mozambique. And I also have joining me in the course of the conversation as well, Zama Shona, ATM spokesperson. Let me welcome you first. And thank you so much for joining me here on News Now.
Thank you and good morning.
All right, great. What is the mood like? Let's start at first. What's happening in Mozambique as we speak? Following the announcement, we do hear that the protest has indeed taken a new turn. So can you share with us what's currently happening right now?
The situation is getting more and more intense. Throughout the night, I had gunshots ringing almost from all corners of the city. Protesters in the neighboring city of Matola did not sleep at all. There was gunfire along the night, and we could see through the video circulating in Maputo that many police stations were torched throughout the night, and including some of the private and public buildings were also set ablaze last night. Mozambicans are really angry about the election outcome, which was announced yesterday by the Constitutional Council.
Wow. Can you share with us? So what's the security forces? What are they doing about the protest, which has taken a different turn? What's happening to people who are living in these areas as well? Any updates? Are there lives that have been lost? Can you help us paint a picture?
We don't have the figures as yet, but the situation on the ground seems to be very tense What we could see last night was clashes between police and protesters. And in some instances, the police were even running away from the protesters because they were using stones, sticks, and matches to chase them away as they went around destroying public buildings and burning police stations last night. That is what we could see last night. So far, the police has not made any public statements as it stands. We are not sure of how many people were injured or arrested, but given the situation last night, the figures could be very high if they are to release the figures of the injured people.
All right, let me go to you, Zama. Can you give us your take on the situation in Mozambique and how neighboring countries like South Africa are indeed silent on this matter? It didn't just start today, it's taken months and it was brewing, and many had foreseen that this incident would take place, especially when Chapo would be announced as the official winner and president of Mozambique.
Thank you so much. Well, as the African movement, we're of the view that if you're going to deal with matters of this nature, it is important first to ensure that we can actually protect the integrity of such democratic processes such as elections. And when there are disputes, it is imperative that the electoral body of the country must do all that is within its power to try and save the elections. Now, elections from registration to actually the declaration of elections, it is very important that the electoral body must always at all times try and actually deal with issues that would actually end up in situations of this nature. So for us as the African Transformation Movement, we believe that some of these things could have been sorted should the democratic process been exhausted to the fullest. And right now, with the scenes that we're seeing right now, there's a lot of unhappiness that is seen. There's a lot of anger that we are seeing because it seems as if that there are a lot of irregularities that people of Mozambique are not happy with those, and who else could actually assist us to actually shed some light into these issues if it is not the body itself. So for us, we believe that this could have been avoided should the issues raised by those on the ground had been taken into full consideration and resolved timeously.
Well, I'm going to look forward to see what will come out of this one. Hopefully, we'll get more updates. But I want to say thank you so much, Zama, for speaking with us. And also thank you so much as well to our other guest who indeed has joined us. That's Mr. Manguiro. Thank you for the update as well. Well, still to come, let's also tell you very quickly that we'll be going straight to the United States with the next story. Well, in a significant shift from 2023, Congress and the U.S. president have approved $1 trillion in new 10-year debt during 2024, primarily driven by the Social Security Fairness Act and the American Relief Act. This follows a $1.3 trillion reduction achieved last year through the Bipartisan Fiscal Responsibility Act. President of the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, Maya McGuinness, voiced concern citing surge in interest rates and warnings that Social Security could become insolvent within a decade. She noted that $380 billion of the new debt was added in a single day during the final session of the 108th Congress. McGuinness urged policymakers to commit to a new borrowing in 2025, emphasizing the need to address key fiscal deadlines, including the return of the debt ceiling and expiring tax provisions. Well, to delve deeper into this issue, we're joined by World Affairs commentator Laurie Laird. Thank you for being here as well this morning. Can you quickly share with us what is the debt ceiling and how important this is?
Yeah, I think it lost in the controversy and the breathless reporting last weekend about whether the U.S. government was actually going to shut down because of the lack of passage of a budget. I think that all of that reporting obscured something really big that's coming down the road, and that is the imposition of a debt ceiling in the U.S. Let's take this to first principles. America spends a whole lot more than it takes in tax receipts. Like many countries, Nigeria is the same. The way America covers its bills is to borrow money from many people. They issue things called government bonds or bills or notes, depending on the length of that instrument. People buy those things. So anyone who owns a pension fund that may have government treasury debt in it, a U.S. government bond, is actually lending the U.S. government money, whether they want to or not. Now, this all works fine for as long as people are willing to lend America money. It also works fine when America can borrow indefinitely. This debt ceiling, which is going to be mandated as of the 2nd of January, is an arbitrary construct. It was a law first passed in 1917 that just limits the amount that America can borrow. It, again, arbitrary number. It is not adjusted for inflation. And once America hits that number, it can no longer borrow. Now, back in the last time that we wrangled over the debt ceiling, that was back in June of 2023, also that was connected with a government shutdown. The government of the time decided to suspend the debt ceiling until the 2nd of January 2025. That's a date that's rolling around sometime soon. As of that date, when that is reimposed, in theory, America may not be able to borrow anymore. Now, the U.S. Treasury Department can employ some sort of accounting tricks that will allow the fiscal picture, the government financial picture, to look a little bit better than it may be. That means America can borrow for an indeterminate period of time before it hits that debt ceiling. Economists think that that could be sometime in the middle of June, but that really is guesswork. Once that happens, what does America do? It is going to have to prioritize paying for things that it can pay for out of cash receipts, tax receipts, the receipts that people like me, I'm an American citizen and a UK citizen, those taxes go in, others pay taxes. America will have to finance its spending on those tax receipts. What does it do? Does it prioritize just defense spending, education, Social Security, healthcare payments, servicing its debt? These are the sorts of questions that America will have to face once it breaches this debt ceiling. And the thing that international markets care about is, will America decide not to service its debt interest payments? That would amount to a default from the biggest economy in the world.
Well, nicely put. I want to say thank you so much, Laurie Laird, for joining us, and thanks for your analysis. And that's all that we have for you this hour here on News Now. But before we go, let's take a quick look at some of the top stories. President Bola Tinubu says no regrets removing subsidy, affirms tax reform is here to stay. Nigeria's Center for Counter-Terrorism Operations says 742 arrested suspects convicted in 7 years. And Constitutional Council ruling sparks fresh poll protest in Mozambique. Well, don't forget to watch News Central live on DSTV, channel 422, Star Times, channel 274, Avo TV. You can always and also stream live on YouTube and also on Facebook. And like I usually say, the ladies will be here at 10 a.m. West African time. Make sure you tune in and follow through on the very interesting conversation. My name is Joe Hansen. Good morning.